Harrison, and I am pleased to be joined with Marcus Mosher, who's wearing black today. I can't tell where his shoulders end and his chair begins. Both wearing black, but we're kind of even. I think I'm too close. My head's looks like a giant planet compared to yours. You've got a bigger head than I do, and
that's true. It's true.
Every way that's conceivable. Big game last night. We got power rankings to get to. We got to talk Patriots, Bills. It was a huge game. People were really excited about it. And I personally thought it lived up to it. But what are your overarching thoughts from Monday Night Football?
Yeah, I mean, we should first start with, I thought that game was a lot of fun. We don't get many games like that in today's NFL. And I know I really enjoyed it. I'm sure you did as well. It's nice to see these kind of defensive battles where you've got to use some different strategy to find ways to win games. And I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. Unfortunately, it's becoming a dinosaur in our business. I talked to Michael Fabiano last night, and he was kind of lamenting, like, there's no fantasy points in this game. That's not good. And I'm like, dude, are you serious right now?
To his credit, he's a fantasy football analysis, right? That's what he does for a living. So I get it.
But he's right. He said, hey, man, that's the world we live in. That's why fans are watching the game. And he's right. Most of the fans do watch the game for their fantasy teams now. But I asked him, I go, because he's a big Yankees fan. I said, all right, if the Yankees won 3-2 in a pitcher's duel with great defensive plays, you would be like, man, that was a heck of a ball game. Mm-hmm. If some dude walked in the room, said, yeah, but my guy didn't hit 3 home runs, it stunk, you would be so annoyed, right? Yeah. And he didn't say anything. I'm like, exactly. And that's what football has become. Unfortunately, most of our fans don't seem to like these games anymore when they look at the box score. But if you actually sat and watched the game, right, like, it was incredibly entertaining. And I did notice a lot of people on Twitter. I was very encouraged because a lot of people were saying, hey, this is a really fun, entertaining game.
The one thing I do want to ask you about in this game, because it was so windy and because it was such an odd game, are there a lot of takeaways that we can really get from this game? Or do we just say, okay, it was a nice win by the Patriots, but let's not say New England is definitively better than Buffalo or anything like that?
I think there are takeaways from it, because when I said that this is becoming a dinosaur, and unfortunately I shouldn't say it's what fans want. It's what the owners and the competition committee perceive that the fans want. And that's why we're going to get more climate controlled stadiums and so on and so forth with field turf and everything else. But what I was going to say to you is that I think sometimes people don't realize why they like postseason football so much. Postseason football always rates incredibly well, right? And we think it's because of the stakes. And sure, the stakes play something into it, because you lose, you go home. But it's also because elements do come into play in the playoffs, and you have to do it now, and you have to adjust right now. And so on that basis, I think this game meant a tremendous amount, because it shows that New England could win any way that they need to win. Not that we had that much doubt in Bill Belichick before, but I think this game was extremely impressive from a coaching standpoint.
I agree. I mean, to basically not throw the ball at all and win that game was very, very impressive. I will say, Elliot, I'm a little bit worried about the Bills. I still think the Bills are a good team. They're incredibly talented, but you start looking at their schedule coming up. Like, they play at Tampa Bay this week on a short week. They play in New England. They already have 5 losses. Let's say they do lose both of those games. They've got to win out probably to make the playoffs at 10-7. If they slip up at all, and we've seen them do that this year, against Jacksonville and against some other lesser teams, they're in real danger of not making the playoffs. And that was just, so inconceivable considering where they were at this time last year.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is they just can't dilly-dally. They're at Tampa Bay. They've got Carolina at home. Carolina still in the playoff mix. Then they should win England. That one. Yeah, they've got Atlanta at home. That's a win. They've got the Jets at home. That should be a win. But if they lose to Tampa and they lose to New England, which they could very easily do, then that Carolina game becomes absolutely huge for them. And again, that's in 2 weeks. Of course, Carolina doesn't have Christian McCaffrey. On the fantasy point, I think it's great that people get involved in football that maybe didn't used to be involved. I only lament that I'm talking to a friend of mine, and we had, he disagreed. I think he was right though. He said, "Hey, that's the world we're in right now in football. You're in the minority. People want to see fantasy points. They don't want to see these kind of strategic defensive games."
I disagree with that. I disagree though. I think there's still a large portion of football fans that do enjoy these kind of games. I was watching the game with two of my uncles last night, and they both play fantasy, but they really enjoyed it because of the strategy of, okay, do we try to kick an extra point into the wind, or do we go for a 2-point conversion? I understand that fantasy rules the world right now, but I do think there's a large portion of football fans that enjoy those type of games.
And now you're looking at why Jim Kelly made the Hall of Fame, by the way, because he had to play in the wind in Buffalo in December all the time, and his numbers weren't as good. And that's also why teams always wanted a big, strong arm quarterback like him or Troy Aikman. So great game last night. I really enjoyed that one. I don't enjoy where we're going to start today, because we are going to start, as we always do, at the bottom of the league. And I've put the Houston Texans back at 32. Do you have any issue with this whatsoever? They're generating no offense, man. None.
Zero. And I don't understand the decision to bench Tyrod Taylor at halftime and put in Davis Mills, who probably got no work during the week at all. It doesn't make any sense at all. This team has no direction. I kind of think they're going to be looking for a new head coach and a new quarterback this offseason.
Oh, maybe they want to see what they have in Davis Mills. It would make sense from that standpoint. But you'd like to see him get more work during the week and not be thrown into a game that they'd lose 31-0. Speaking of 31, the Jacksonville Jaguars are number 31. As I typically do, I like to spend most of my time watching a complete crap game. So, of course, I watch Jacksonville Rams. I watched the whole doggone thing. The Jags, Marcus, they're not that far away.
They're not.
But they just can't string it together, right? It's like a puzzle, and they've got the pieces, and they have certain corners of the puzzle kind of worked out, and then they have this island in the middle of the puzzle that's worked out, but they don't have all the connectors.
I agree, but some of the decision making that Urban Meyer makes, I just don't get. Like, why was James Robinson benched in this game in favor of Carlos Hyde? Like, what's the Yeah, but Carlos Hyde fumbled as well. So
Robinson fumbled and then Hyde fumbled.
So why leave Carlos Hyde? See, at this point in the season for Jacksonville, it should all be about player development, trying to find out which guys are keepers and which guys to move on from. I don't get that part of it at all.
Hey, if you want to take a deep dive film study into Jags Rams, I mean, I'm here for you, because unfortunately
Laquan Treadwell
saw too much of it.
Treadwell had a nice game. We've kind of made fun of him the last couple of weeks, but he's probably their most reliable receiver, which kind of shows you how far Jacksonville is away from having a good offense.
All right, we got to get off Jacksonville here. Yeah. Detroit gets their first win. Congratulations to them. I mean, a lot's been said about the win. It's been showed over and over. We've seen videos of Jared Goff's girlfriend celebrating, like everyone celebrating. Dan Campbell. Mm-hmm. It's a really just a great thing for everybody. I was happy to see it. Now the key is put together another strong performance. They're 1-1-1 in the last 3 games. Mm-hmm. Let's see them go out and play. And I'm not saying play well. I'm not saying they need to win the game, but I do think without Swift, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, they've been pretty competitive over the last couple of weeks. So that's really encouraging to see. Awesome to see them get a win. I wouldn't be surprised if they get another 1 or 2 over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll see. New York Jets at 29. They're still bad, but they actually went down the field, scored on the first 3 drives. Then the offense stalled completely. Nothing happened after that. They ended up not scoring any more points the rest of the game. I think they lost 33-18. Yep. And the defense still is a problem. They've given up the most points allowed in the league.
They gave up over 400 yards to Gardner Minshew and that Eagles offense. Not good. But I did think Zach Wilson maybe had the best game of his career so far. So that is the one positive thing to take away from this one.
And I don't know why I said they gave up the most points allowed. I could have just said they gave up the most points. I'm working on my English. The Bears, 28. Another off. Notice there's a theme with a lot of these teams that the offense is tremendously problematic for all of them. This team's no different. I don't know what the future is in Chicago, but I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of change. And I'm not just talking about Matt Nagy.
Yeah, I think they're going to see a new general manager as well. My question is Andy Dalton, 4 interceptions in this game. He just looked awful. is Andy Dalton ever going to get a chance to be a team's starting quarterback going into a season again? Because I kind of think the answer is no.
Probably not. And you kind of wonder about Nick Foles a little bit.
Yeah,
but
I think they would have had a better shot of winning that game with Foles because Dalton was awful.
And I don't like to speculate on guys getting fired. Everyone's speculating on Matt Nagy. Hopefully he turns it around and maybe he can make something out of the end of this year. I will root for those guys.
I will say just really quickly on Matt Nagy, I do think in the right role, he could be a really good offensive coordinator for a team. I think he's somebody I would take a chance on if he does end up leaving Chicago. That's all.
Did a nice job with Alex Smith, I thought. But all right, Atlanta Falcons are 27. They're mathematically still alive, Marcus, but this is another team. I'm not really sure what the future holds for them. You know, you certainly don't want to put this on Matt Ryan. They hung with Tampa Bay for a while, but they're secondary. They don't have the personnel in the back seven to keep up with the good teams.
I do think Matt Ryan in the right situation can still be a top 15 quarterback in the league. It's just not in Atlanta. Thought he played pretty well despite not throwing a touchdown in this game. They hung around in the first half. I think it was a 3-point game going into halftime, and then they didn't score again. So still, this team is it's a long way away, and you feel like a rebuild is certainly coming here soon.
You think?
I mean, they need one, right?
They really do. And you know, I'm just kind of looking at Matt Ryan's numbers right now. Look, they don't wow you. They're very average, but their offense as a whole is average. The problem really is the defense. I mean, opponents have 25 touchdowns allowed passing, only 6 interceptions. It'd be helpful if they could get some takeaways.
Let me ask you this. If you put Matt Ryan, let's say in Cleveland instead of Baker Mayfield, are the Browns better or worse?
I wouldn't do it. I would go with Baker. Baker's younger. He's more mobile. I do think Baker's a gamer. I'm not as hard on Baker Mayfield as everybody else is.
Fair enough.
But that's me. Carolina Panthers at 26. Talk about quarterback problems. Everyone's been second guessing what Carolina did this past offseason. That doesn't make any sense. It's done. What's done is done. What matters now is what they do going forward. I will say this, though. With Christian McCaffrey out again and Saquon Barkley struggling terribly, and that's our next team, spoiler alert on the list, it really does lend itself to, do you ever want to take a running back in the first round again? Or as a high first rounder?
I would say that's the difference, because I think you can justify it a little bit if you're taking them at the end of the first round, depending on the prospect, but inside the top 10, I just don't see it. No.
Sony Michel went at the end of the first round, I think. Mark Ingram, I think, went at the end of the first round, if memory serves.
But like Nick Chubb went like 34, right? Like if the Browns, let's say the Browns drafted Nick Chubb at 31. Okay, I get that. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. You get an extra year on the contract, but inside the top 10, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, the Panthers, like I said, 5-7, they're very much in it. They're not just alive. They are very much in it right now for the postseason, which is crazy to think about. But when you see how the 6 and 7 seeds stack out, it's crazy. The NFC is really weak at the bottom. The Giants, another team that I guess mathematically it's somehow feasible, but they are 4-8. I think that was a season killer losing at Miami. If they were going to save the season, they need to go down there and get a road win. They weren't able to do it.
Much like the Falcons, I wonder if the Giants are looking at a really big rebuild. Like, is there a chance that Dave Gettleman, Joe Judge, and Daniel Jones just all aren't back next year? I think it's possible. I think for sure 2 of the 3 are gone. I'm really curious to see what happens with this Giants team this offseason.
By the way, that was one cruddy game I didn't watch. I just wanted to.
Oh, you should have. Miami's defense was really, really good in that game. It was actually enjoyable watching how good they were.
I listened to a little bit on the radio of that one, but I did not watch that game. I'm not ashamed to admit that, quite frankly. I don't know why I said I was ashamed. I'm absolutely not guilty whatsoever about it. Let's go to 24. We got to get out of these cruddy teams. By the way, this is a team, New Orleans at 24. So I've got Carolina 26, Giants 25, New Orleans 24. That's kind of where New Orleans is right now. Taysom Hill needs surgery on that finger. He's going to try to gut it out. Trevor Siemian did not play well against Buffalo. The coaching staff doesn't trust him to generate offense. The other guy they have is totally not ready to play. So that's where you're at. And Jameis Winston, in case you've been living under a rock for the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it was, he's been out. Am I too low on these guys? Is this where they belong?
It's probably where they belong based on what's happened over the last 2 months. But it's really unfortunate, Elliot, because I think there's a world in which this team is a legitimate NFC playoff contender because
Agreed.
that defense is really talented and they're deep. Dennis Allen's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. And if Jameis is healthy and they have Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, I think they could be a top 10 to 12 offense. And if you have those two things together, why couldn't they rake and run in the NFC? It's just really unfortunate the way the whole season has played out for them.
I couldn't agree more. This was definitely a team I thought was headed to playoffs, but
yeah,
I don't think Pittsburgh's headed to playoffs. I know that they beat Baltimore. It was a big win for them. You may disagree with me there that maybe they sneak in somehow, but I still don't think this is a strong team, Marcus. That's why I have them at 23. I need to see more than 1 week. They just got blown out by Cincinnati the week before.
Yep.
One win at home against Baltimore, who they always play tough, is not enough to convince me.
Yeah, I do think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to get in at 10, 6-1. Their schedule's pretty easy the rest of the way. And they've got some, good breaks coming up. They play the Vikings here on Thursday Night Football without Dalvin Cook, without Adam Thielen. Then they'll play the Titans without Derrick Henry and without AJ Brown. I see them going on a little bit of a run here. So I think you're a little low. I do think this is a playoff team.
Well, if they make the playoffs, they'll have to do it over the Chargers, potentially over the Dolphins, over the Bills. If they're a playoff team, they're a 7 seed. But they're not doing any. They're not doing anything. Well, Seattle's not doing anything.
Really quickly.
Yeah.
If you had to bet on a team to win the AFC North right now, who would you pick?
Cincinnati.
And they probably have the hardest remaining schedule of all the teams left in that division, which in Joe Burrow's hand is beat up. We'll get to them in a little bit, but that's also,
I'll be honest, that's a little bit of a biased faith.
Well, that's who I'm rooting for as well. I think
because I already know who's going to win it. It's Baltimore. So unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because their games are so ugly and they're just. We'll get to Baltimore.
Okay.
Seattle, Seattle, another team that technically is alive. They saved their season. They got a clutch win against San Francisco, but they still don't look good to me. And they're trying too hard to get players involved in the offense. There's nothing about this team that looks. They're not seamless. You know what I mean? There's just too many.
It's
too many
clunky.
Bumps.
This team looks very clunky from game to game and even drive to drive. I mean, they don't really string together long drives. Everything is just reliant on big plays or special teams plays. They got an 80-yard touchdown off of
Travis Homer.
Yeah, Travis Homer. Their schedule's pretty easy coming up, so it wouldn't be surprising if we start talking about them as a playoff hopeful, but I agree with you. They're just not a good team right now.
No team's more maddening than Minnesota Vikings. They're at 21. So I've got them a spot ahead of Seattle and they're not that much better than Seattle right now. They would seem like it on paper. They would be, but if you can't play well in the second half of the fourth quarter, you're not a good team. I mean, you consistently do that over and over and over again.
I'm really glad that I didn't pick Minnesota on our Thursday pod because that would have been awful, right? I did. I will give the Vikings a little bit of credit here because they played that game in the second half without Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Eric Kendricks, Patrick Peterson, and Anthony Barr. I mean, they were really banged up in that game, and it ended up biting them. So I think they're better than what they showed on Sunday.
They're still just making bad plays, man, late in the game at inopportune times. I think of the drive against San Francisco. They lucked out when Robbie Gould missed a field goal, and it was a terrible drive coming back down. I didn't have the guts to pick Detroit. I came really close. I told you I thought Minnesota would possibly lose this game, and I had Detroit to cover the line. But I didn't have the guts to pick the Lions. Next time I'll just say Lions outright. Miami is our 20th ranked team. Miami is very much in the playoff race now. They've won 5 in a row. Granted, the competition hasn't been very good, but it makes you think, if they had been able to come up with a win like against Atlanta earlier in the year, this team would really be in good shape. And maybe they'd be in the playoffs over your Steelers.
Over my Steelers. I'm really enjoying watching this Miami team right now because the defense is finally starting to play at an elite level. Like over the last 5 games, they're giving up like less than 10 points a game. Tua playing really well. That offensive line is atrocious, and he's still finding ways to move the football. I like this Miami team quite a bit, and their schedule's not super hard over the next 5 games. So I mean, I don't think they go 10-7, but 9-8.
No, 9-8 is
close,
stealing,
right?
I think, for them. But hey, 9-8 may be good enough.
But if you go 9-8 after starting 1-7, you got to feel pretty good about the direction of the team, right?
Yeah, and hey, they beat New England. Anyway, let's go to the Broncos at 19, another week 1 anomaly, right? The Broncos start off the season really good. They were 3-0. Then they hit the skids, and then they really came back with that huge win against the Cowboys. They've played tough ever since then. They didn't really have it Sunday night. Are you thinking this team's going to finish 8-9 and out? What's your thought?
Yeah, I think 7-10, 8-9. I don't see them as a playoff team. Teddy Bridgewater isn't the problem with this offense, but he isn't the answer either. Like, he's fine, but they need more than fine because their defense just isn't elite anymore. They can't win games, 13-10. They need somebody that can throw the ball down the field, and they just don't have it. So it's a good team. It's just not good enough to make the playoffs.
I'm with you there. Philadelphia Eagles beat the Broncos a few weeks back, kind of took it to them. Eagles defense looked really bad in this game early on. I talked to my buddy Sudsy, a big Eagles honk, and we talked extensively. I mean, I get Eagles talk every week, Ben. I get Eagles talk radio. Seeing Gardner Minshew show up with his call sign Dax jacket was so sweet, man, to the game. And it looked like he had Capas on. I don't know if you remember Capas. Yeah. Dude, and the stonewashed jeans, or they were the really light denim.
Oh, yeah.
And then the bro punch, the double Van Damme punch to his dad's sternum.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen any of that, you need to get on board. I love watching the guy. And hey, the Eagles, it really makes you think if they would have been able, if Rager comes up with that catch or Hurts doesn't throw that goal to go interception against the Giants, this team would be 7-6 and very much not only in the thick of the wild card, but the NFC East. That's not the case. They got blown out by the Raiders. That was their last really bad game. Yep. The Raiders are number 17. I dropped them. If I didn't say it, by the way, the Eagles are 18, Broncos are 19, Dolphins are 20. That's where we are. Raiders, this was not a pretty game for either team, Washington or the Raiders. They had the long rest, but without Waller, this offense is I don't want to say it's dysfunctional because I think Carr's played really well at times this year, but you can only lose so many guys. And it's not like they have this great offensive line that can impose its will, Marcus.
They had this game. Trevon Merrick, the rookie safety, had both hands on an interception on the last drive of the game that Taylor Heineke just tried to throw a ball away and it hit him in the hands and he dropped it. He picks that ball off. They win. They're sitting now at 7-5, and they're right in the thick of things in the AFC at 6-6 with games still against the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Broncos. I think they're a non-playoff team this year. So it's really unfortunate how that game kind of unfolded.
I'm not a defensive backs coach or defensive coordinator, but if I was, this is what I would do. By this week of the season, you know what scheme you're playing. Everybody should know what the heck they're doing, right? Other than what you're scouting from the opposing team. So I get all my defensive backs together and we're just going to have a jugs machine day. And that's all we're doing. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
You don't want to get your guys hurt, right?
Yep.
So what a great way to practice, be a full participant. And I would be hitting the jugs machine all the time. And here's why. What's more important than takeaways late in the season, right?
Nothing.
Yeah. Nope. How many defensive backs do we see in the league that literally cannot catch the ball?
Yep.
It's
most
absolutely crazy. Yeah. Okay. Rant over with. Thank goodness the leaf blower shut down, or I'd really be. Let's go to number 16. All right. So Washington football team, we just talked about that game. They get the win. Just obviously we're going to have a picks podcast on Thursday, so we don't want to talk Dallas too much. Simple question. Do you think they have a chance to win the NFC East?
No, I don't. But I will say, here's my bold prediction. I think we get 3 NFC East playoff teams this year.
It can be hard to do because you're basically ruling out San Francisco, I assume.
No. Well, kind of. Washington's already the 6th seed right now, right?
Okay.
And Philadelphia's schedules, they're only playing divisional opponents the rest of the year.
So you're jacking the Niners out because there's no way the Rams aren't making the playoffs.
49ers do have a tough schedule. They play the Bengals this week. They still have a game against the Rams, I believe. I mean, if the Eagles and Washington both get to 8 wins, they're probably in. So, yeah, I think I am.
Yeah, and you're really selling Carolina short. All right, Cleveland at 15. That was not a serious comment. Cleveland Browns, they were on a bye. I pretty much left them where they are.
Yep.
In fact, the graphic, thank you, Courtney. It says ranking remains the same. It's excellent typing work there by whoever did that. I think that was Herbert that probably typed that. This looks, by the way, these graphics look very, what would you say that looks like to you?
It looks very retro. I like it.
It is. It's very 1990. If I had to put a year on it. The Browns, there's not much to say. They're on a bye. They're still, Baker Mayfield's still banged up. He's not going to get healthier all of a sudden, or at least not totally healthy. Do you think the Browns are out of the playoffs? Is this a 9-8 non-playoff team?
Their season comes down to this week against Baltimore. They'll host them in Cleveland. They lose that game. Yeah, they're done. If they win, all of a sudden they're only a game back in the division, and Baltimore still has games against, I believe, the Packers, Rams, and the Packers and Rams over the next 2 weeks. So huge game for Cleveland. I wouldn't not be surprised if they win that one.
I have a feeling they are going to win that game. I think I'm going to pick them on Thursday. Okay, San Francisco at 14. We just talked about them a little bit. Their schedule's tough. They really needed to win this game against Seattle, Marcus, for their playoff hopes. I still think they're a good team. What do you think about the calls for Trey Lance?
Seems a little bit early. I still think 49ers in playoff contention. I don't think you want to start a rookie quarterback right now. I think you just give them the rest of this year, and in 2022, it's the Trey Lance show.
And blaming Jimmy Garoppolo for the end of that game. Look, batted balls are usually great anticipatory plays by a defensive lineman. You can't be blaming quarterbacks. They make the read, they release the ball. They can't sit there and watch the defensive end engage with the tackle and say, gee, maybe I don't want to release it yet. You can't do that.
I also say we've seen throughout the season what's happened to some really good quarterbacks when they lose their top receiver, right? Dak has struggled without Amari Cooper. Derek Carr struggles without Darren Waller. Deebo Samuel might be the most important player on that team. Did not play in this game. I think they'll be fine once he returns to the lineup.
Yeah, I agree with you. Cowboys have struggled when Gallup was hurt. Okay, let's go to the Chargers at 13. Huge win against Cincinnati. Kind of a crazy game. The score looked worse than that game actually was. The Bengals had a huge chance in this game, Marcus. They were down 24-0. This was the early game window I watched the most of before I decided to dip into my normal, crap football game in the afternoon. The Bengals had a chance. Joe Mixon fumbles and nobody hit him. The ball just squirted. It's almost like he squeezed it too hard with his forearm up against his pads. It squibbles out. Chargers go the other way. Just like that, game changer.
I just want to say teams 13-9 right here. You can mix them and match them and put one at 13 and one at 9, and I'd be fine with it because I have no idea what you're going to get from any of these teams on any given week, right? The Chargers look good against the Bengals in Cincinnati in an early afternoon game, and then they completely lay an egg against Denver. The Titans will have games where they dominate the Rams, and then they look awful against Jacksonville. So let's give everybody what that grouping is.
Go ahead. So I've got the Chargers at 13. I've got the Titans at 12, the Bills at 11, the Bengals at 10, and the Ravens at 9. And so the Titans were off. They ran the ball well against New England, but for some reason, Ryan Tannehill just has not been playing good football, right?
Nope.
Josh Allen is hit or miss. Defense is missing probably its most impactful player or one of its two most impactful players. And they could not stop the run, even though they knew it was coming over and over and over again. Cincinnati, they look great for 2 weeks, and then they have a dud like they did against Mike White and the Jets. They did get down 24-0 in this game. They're a young team. Maybe they think they can just show up and do what they did to Baltimore or do what they did to Pittsburgh. You can't do that. Every week, you got to bring it. And then you have Baltimore, where it's becoming harder to defend Lamar Jackson's play. I get it. He's exciting. He makes incredible plays with his legs. But at the end of the day, that offense doesn't look good. So Chargers 13, Titans 12, Bills 11, Bengals 10, Ravens 9. Any of these teams not make the playoffs? First of all, of these 5, who makes the playoffs? Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, the Ravens will, because they already have 8 wins. They just need to win 2 of their last 5. Yeah. And their schedule's hard. They'll do that. I think the Bengals, of all these teams, the Bengals are probably the one that I picked not to make the playoffs The Bills, I think, will probably win 3 of their last 5. The Titans are going to win their division, and the Chargers have the easiest schedule of everybody left. So the
I
Bengals are
can't
the
trust
one
the
team.
Chargers.
Oh, I'm not saying I can't trust them because I
The
don't.
Los Angeles Vikings,
But you
the
want to know
Minnesota
something? You want
Chargers.
to know something's really funny? Here's a question I had for you. In the playoffs, which quarterback of these 5 teams do you trust the most between Lamar Jackson, Burrow, Josh Allen, Ryan Tannehill, and Justin Herbert?
Honestly, probably Ryan Tannehill,
Oh,
even though he
no.
hasn't played well. Is that terrible?
No, it's not, but it's probably the right answer.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar has made some great plays at the end of games, but probably Ryan Tannehill. I wanted to just say real quick before we get off these teams regarding Cincinnati, because we mentioned their schedule. Here's Cincinnati's schedule going forward. San Francisco plays at Cincinnati. That's a huge game for the 49ers, and you can bet they're going to run on Cincinnati. Broncos in Denver. That Broncos defense is tough. That is not an automatic win. Baltimore in Cincinnati. You know the Ravens are going to want a little bit of payback for the way they got spanked at home. That was bad. Am I allowed to say spanked? I don't know. Has that become a word that?
No,
All right, I don't know. I didn't know if that's one of the new things I can't say or whatever. Chiefs. Well, you know, I don't want to make anyone mad. All right, Chiefs. That's in Cincinnati. But that's another game they could lose. And then at Cleveland to close out the season. And the Browns, regardless of what we say, they may be 9-7 playing to go 10-7 and make the playoffs.
They need to win 3 of those 5. And the most winnable probably are the 49ers, Denver, and Cleveland. It's a tough schedule. That's probably why I'm the least confident about them.
All right. So just to review, Chargers at 13, the most inconsistent team in the AFC, I think, hands down. Tennessee, who has not played well as of late because Tannehill, quite frankly, has not been able to carry them. They're missing their best player. Buffalo, another really inconsistent team that we think is good, but missing a key part and still waiting on Josh Allen to play like an MVP. Cincinnati Bengals, we just went over their schedule, and then Baltimore is at 9. They just need, as Marcus says, a couple more wins. Let's look at the top 8, though. Let's look at the true best teams in the league here. Now, I do think there's a couple of tiers here, but we'll start with the Dallas Cowboys at 8. I did move them up a spot for beating the Saints. To me, the biggest thing with the Cowboys is not the offense that the media keeps talking about over and over and over again. It's DeMarcus Lawrence being back in the mix on defense. That is the most important development to me by a country mile.
I think you're a little low on Dallas, but not enough to put up a big fight about it. They are getting some guys back on defense. Neville Gallimore, Randy Gregory coming back. They're getting a bunch of turnovers. The offense, is getting Amari Cooper back. They had a really tough stretch of playing. Was it 3 games in 12 days? That's tough on any team. So I'm really curious to see what they look like over the next month. I think 8's just a little bit low, Elliot.
Maybe so. I've got the Rams one spot ahead of them at 7. If Dallas played the Rams, they'd have to be able to run the ball better than they have. Yep. They did not run the ball well. Forget what you see in the box score. If you were just playing fantasy and you weren't able to see the game, they had one huge run by Tony Pollard, but outside of that, they didn't do diddly squat. You do that against the Rams, and now you've got their defensive line, just their front 7, just rushing the passer all the time and not even worried about the run. So that worries me if those 2 teams played. And I try to do that when I'm ranking teams I think are really close.
Which they will, by the way. I don't see any way that the Cowboys and Rams don't play each other in the first round of the playoffs. It seems almost impossible.
I'm pretty sure they have played each other in the playoffs more than any 2 teams in league history. I would need to confirm that, but they played in 73. They played in 75. They played in 76. They played in 78. They played in 79. They played in 80. They played in 83, 85. They played in 2018. They haven't played. That's the only one recent, right? Yeah, 2018. Yep. That's a lot of playoff games, man. I still think the Rams are a slightly better team. We need to talk about Cooper Kupp, though. My gosh. Dude, Cooper Kupp is going to have 1,900 yards receiving this year. Yeah. He's got the triple crown right now. Catches, yards, and touchdowns. I don't know when's the last time that's been done. I know Randy Moss came close with the Vikings, and I know that Jerry Rice did it in 95. No, he didn't do it. He didn't lead in catches that year. That's hard to do.
It is hard to do. He's really, really good. It's nice to see Odell Beckham continue to have at least a little bit of a role in this offense. I'm just not taking away too much from their win over Jacksonville, because before this game, they looked awful for the last month. So we'll see what they look like this week.
Tyler Higbee says hi.
Yeah.
With his hair.
They play the Cardinals this week. That's a huge game for the Rams.
I kind of like our Rams analysis right where it was. Cooper Kupp's having a good year.
Okay.
Colts at number 6. You said I was too high on the Colts. I don't know if you still feel that way. I think they've proven it. They took it to a bad team this week, but they played right there with Tampa Bay last week. I love, you talk about teams that are, what did we see with Patriots Bills? You saw a weather game. What if the Colts had to go play in Buffalo? Would you trust that the Colts could go beat them? I would.
I would, except for they're not going to make the playoffs, which is really funny that they're the 6th ranked team in our list and they're not even going to be in the tournament. But I can't really disagree with you.
Let's look at the Colts schedule.
They have 6 losses already, right?
Yeah.
They're on a bye this week, so they're going to need to win 3 of their next 4 games at least to make the playoffs. I think 10 wins is the right number in the AFC.
Okay. They play New England at home. They can win that game because Mac Jones is going to have to throw the ball in that game.
They can win it. That's going to be a tough one.
It's going to be a tough one. They can win at Arizona. I think if they run right at Arizona is going to have their hands full with Jonathan Taylor. They're going to have to dedicate personnel. I'm not saying they're going to.
They have to split that at least.
Right. They could certainly beat the Raiders at home, Marcus. I like the Raiders. You know, I'm a Derek Carr guy, but that offense right now. Yeah. And then they're at Jacksonville to close out the season. Watch them win all 3 and then lose to Jacksonville. That's probably what's going to happen here. Let's talk about New England, who they're going to be playing this coming week, next
2 weeks. Yep.
Right. 2 weeks. We talked about the coaching maneuvers there. We didn't really get into it specifically, but simply put, New England diversified their running attack. That's what they did. And the Bills could not stop it. And it's a matter of calling the right sequence of plays, reading how Buffalo's lining up, and then just want to from that offensive line and those running backs. I don't know what Coach Belichick or Josh McDaniels said to his running backs, but they ran hard. I know running backs don't matter. I thought the Patriots running backs played great last night.
Just a super impressive win. We talk about culture wins all the time, right? That's a culture win. You go to Buffalo in 55-mile-an-hour winds and you just find a way to get it done. Patriots are really, really good. And I think they're going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC this year, which is absolutely incredible considering all the conversations we had last year about, is Bill Belichick overrated? Is it just a product of Tom Brady? Nope. They're right back to contending for Super Bowl. So quite a job by the Patriots.
Some really nice plays by their secondary too. Yep. I know the wind was a factor. You saw the deflection on the last play of the game, but I thought the play on Dawson Knox in the end zone was a heck of a play. I can't remember who made that one. Went over the shoulder with his left arm.
Adrian Phillips.
Man, that was a big league game-saving play. In that kind of game, that's what I love about football like this, man, is that a great defensive play means the difference. Would anyone say Super Bowl 49 stunk? No. That Malcolm Butler play was amazing, right? I love that game. Just loved it on Monday night. Kansas City played Sunday night. They're 4. So again, we got Cowboys 8, Rams 7, Colts 6. We just went over the Patriots at 5, Chiefs at 4, batting cleanup here. They beat the Broncos, pretty mundane game. It wasn't really an impressive game for the offense, but very, very encouraging if you're a Chiefs fan, that this defense continues to string together nice performances from that side of the ball.
This is the number of points they've allowed in the second half of their last 7 games. 6 against the Broncos, 6 against the Cowboys, 7 against the Raiders, 7 against the Packers, 7 against the Giants, 0 against the Titans, 0 against Washington. Like, that defense is finding ways to just clamp down teams in second halves. It's the reason why they're playing so well. The offense still doesn't look right, but the defense is playing as good as anybody else in the NFL right now.
And there are some decent offenses in there. So, hey, kudos to them. Arizona Cardinals are, kudos to Steve Spagnuolo is really what we should say here. Arizona Cardinals at number 3. I thought about moving them up. I did, but I thought, okay, do I really want to move Green Bay down when Green Bay is getting rested and is on a bye? And Tampa Bay, the last couple of weeks, has played really good football. Tampa Bay is a different team with Rob Gronkowski. They just are. It's crazy. And people are, this is like the third straight podcast I've talked about the guy, but there's no getting around it, man. It's amazing that a tight end makes that big a difference, but he does.
So this is the ranking that I disagree with it, because I disagree with it every single week, right? I think Arizona should be the number one team in the league. They've got the best record. They've got the best point differential. One of their losses came when Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins were out, and the other one came at the 1 inch line against the Packers on a Thursday night football game. I just feel like, Elliot, you don't like this Cardinals team. It's just what it is. Like, I don't know what they would need to do to be at number one and to pass Tampa Bay, because I feel like even if we get to the playoffs and the Cardinals beat Tampa Bay, your argument would be, you know what? I feel like 7 out of 10 times Tampa Bay would win. So let's leave Tampa Bay at number one.
That's all right. I would. There's a lot of things I could say about your recent behavior. I won't say any. Arizona. I'm with you. I'm with you here. Just looking at their schedule here, they play the Rams, as you already mentioned. Then they're at the Lions, but that Colts game, if they play the Rams, the Lions, the Colts, and then the Cowboys, if they win 3 out of those 4 games and they play really well, I'm down with you there. Okay. I want to see what they do against good teams with Kyler, with DeAndre Hopkins, with everybody. But look, honestly, would you be wrong if you put Green Bay 1, Arizona 2, Tampa Bay 3? I don't think.
I kind of feel like there's
these 3 teams.
There's a tier, right? These 3 teams are in that tier, and you just throw them in a bag, and they probably all depend on the matchups, right? Like if Arizona plays, Tampa Bay, I think they probably win that game, but I think Tampa Bay probably beats Green Bay. And then we've seen Green Bay already beat Arizona. So it's a little bit of a rock, paper, scissors game going on between those 3 NFC teams.
I think you can even make the case right now that there's 3 tiers in the top 8. Tampa, Green Bay, and Arizona, 1, 2, 3. And then 4 and 5, the Patriots and Chiefs.
Yep.
And then 6, 7, 8, the Colts, Rams, and Cowboys. Now, admittedly, 3 and 4 versus 5, 6, 7, and 8, very, very thin. But I think there's a clean line of demarcation with Arizona, Green Bay, and the Bucs, more so than Chiefs, Patriots, and the rest of the group. Either way, I think all 8 of these teams are going to make the playoffs. I disagree with Marcus. The Colts are going to get in there. But even if they don't, these aren't the power standings. These are the power rankings. And there's no way the Colts are not a top 10 football team right now. There's no way. Just look at the teams we have from 11 through 20. So let's go back to the rankings real quick before we get out of here. And Courtney, if you could be so kind as to thank you. We had Houston at 32, Jacksonville at 31. Watched a lot of Jags football this weekend. It was watching a game. The Lions at 30, the Jets 29, the Bears at 28. Not sure where the Bears are going in the offseason. I'm not sure about the Falcons either. They're at 27. Yep. Carolina's still alive at 26, but again, these aren't standings. I don't think they're a strong team. Giants are 25. And then going from 24 down, we got the Saints at 24, Pittsburgh at 23. Marcus thinks Pittsburgh's going to make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Seattle at 22, saved their season, but they're not going anywhere. Minnesota's at 21. They're probably not going anywhere. Miami at 20, very much alive. Maybe the hottest team in football right now. Get it? Dolphins, Miami, hot. Sorry. That's my Ted Knight Caddyshack. Yeah. Broncos 19. Eagles at 18. Eagles definitely saved their season. Good for Gardner Minshew. The Raiders are at 17. And then 16 on down, we've got Washington football team at 16. They look like they're going to be a playoff team, as crazy as that is. Marcus and I tend to agree that the Browns are probably going to be the best team to not make the playoffs, but that just depends on a few factors. Obviously, San Francisco at 14, they're struggling to make the playoffs, as are the Chargers at 13. I'm not sure Browns, Niners, or Chargers. If we had to guess, maybe all 3 will be out. Mm-hmm. Tennessee at 12. They were on a bye this past week. Buffalo at 11. Cincinnati Bengals at 10. Baltimore Ravens at 9, but going the wrong direction. And then again, our top 8, Cowboys at 8, Rams at 7, Colts at 6, Patriots at 5, Chiefs at 4. You could argue the Patriots Chiefs ranking. I like where it is because the Chiefs defense playing better. That's why I have them there. Cardinals at 3, which Marcus thinks should be 1, Packers at 2, Bucks at 1. So would you have it Cardinals, Bucks, Packers, or would you have it Cardinals, Packers, Bucks?
Cardinals, Packers, Bucks. And like I said, I think all three of those teams could easily be at number one. I just think with Arizona having the number one record in the league and the number one point differential, they should be at number one. That's all.
Okay, that was your second to last word. Do you have a last word?
I actually have a question for you, and this is totally off topic. So we are 1 week away from Saturday games starting in the NFL, and I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on Saturday games? Because the NFL this year, it's not just one game on a Saturday. Sometimes we got 3 games on a Saturday. We also have some Christmas Day games. We've got Browns Packers on Christmas Day, Colts Cardinals on Christmas night. Are you a fan of Saturday night football in the NFL?
I always liked Saturday games. They've been doing it for a really long time. They always waited till the college season ended. You know, the reason why the NFL has protection from Congress partially is because they agreed not to play on Saturdays and they agreed not to play on Friday nights. Why do you think? Because of high school and college football.
Yep.
That was an arrangement they made with Commissioner Pete Rozelle. That was in the early 60s. And they had to do that because they were sharing television money, which is falls under Sherman antitrust. That's monopoly speak here. So that's why you don't see, if you're wondering, why don't we get a Saturday game like in October? That's why. It's not just out of the kindness of their hearts. I can promise you that. I like it. I don't necessarily like the triple header. The one thing about the NFL that they do is once they see that people like something, they just overdo it. You know,
force feed it down your throat. Yep.
Yeah. So then we get just, some cruddy Thursday night matchups. And, I liked it when they did an occasional Thursday night game. I thought that was cool. Then it became a thing. I don't want 5 games on Saturdays back to back, starting at 7 a.m. Like that's not, but overall, I think it's cool. And late in the year, it gives us something different. So yeah, I'm for it. That was your long-winded answer, but I wanted to give a little history to why that is.
I just don't. I wish they could flex out good games because I actually don't want a good game on Christmas Day, right? Because you got so many other things going on, right? You want to be able to focus on these games. I'm fine with putting Jets Dolphins on a Saturday night. Like, okay, it's on, whatever. We're at a Christmas party. I get it. I don't want big playoff deciding games to be on during that time. That's all. That's all I have to say.
Well, I tell you what, on our Friday free flowing podcast, if you don't want to review the movie Heat,
I do. I love that movie. We can talk about that.
If you don't want to do that, I will tell you my Christmas football game story, which will be right up your alley. So
I've got one
right
as
in
well.
your
It's
heart
one of
of
the
your
last
fandom.
One of the last times I cried during a football game. So,
oh boy. I think with that, we're going to get going. Marcus is the host of Locked On Cowboys. It's the most successful Cowboys podcast out there. He also covers the Raiders for USA Today. The Raiders get scant mention on his timeline, but every once in a while you might see 1 out of every 28 tweets, or 1 out of 17. I'm at Harrison NFL. I got the music. That's the hook. We'll see y'all. Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, Frank. See y'all.